This is my father, Mervyn Tilbury. He's one of the hardest working people I know, and as a kid I remember him working in a factory job making cable ties and a side hustle cutting grass so he could provide for me and my mum and my 3 sisters. He'd stash away any extra money he made in a shoebox as well as a bank account that paid little to no interest, hoping that one day he could quit his job working in the factory. When my uncle invested some of his money in the stock market, my dad said it was an extremely risky move. Unfortunately, what my dad didn't realise is that he was also playing a risky game. Can you see where this story's going? Every year my father's money was losing value due to inflation. This is just what happens over time. As more money is printed, the money in circulation becomes less valuable. This meant he was never able to quit his job in the factory. The thought of my money being eaten away by inflation scared me so much that I've made sure to invest throughout my life. As a result, not only have I beaten inflation, but my investments actually now grow by around $17,000 a week on their own, which over my lifetime has made me millions. I'm no financial advisor, but I am someone that's been there and done it. That's why I'm making this video. It's exactly what I wish I had when I was younger. How can I make money investing in stocks? To make money, we first need to beat the inflation issue. In the last 60 years, this averages out to a rate of 3.8% per year. So if your money isn't growing by more than this on its own, then you're getting poorer by the second. In a perfect world, you would have a savings account that provides an average return of 8 to 10% every year, so that you can both beat inflation and earn some profit. Unfortunately, such savings accounts don't exist. However, you can achieve returns like this by investing in the stock market. A stock is a small part of a company, and when you buy it, you become a shareholder. And when you're a shareholder, there are 2 ways you can make money. Firstly, if the price of the stock goes up during the time you own it, you can sell it for more than you paid. Secondly, you can receive dividends. Dividends are regular payments to shareholders. Not all stocks pay dividends, but if they do, this means that you can receive money without ever selling your stock. The magic really starts to happen when you own a bunch of stocks that grow at an average of 10% per year, because the interest applied becomes larger and larger. This is called compound interest, and I have to admit, a guilty pleasure of mine is messing around with online compound interest calculators. Let's do one now. If you were able to invest $250 per month at an 8% annual return, in 42 years, you'd be a millionaire. And if you continue to do this for another 10 years, you would actually have over $2 million in your account. Of course, if you wanted to invest even more, then that would just speed up the process. This is all based on historical average data and it isn't guaranteed, but it's certainly been my experience. So as you can see, the real secret ingredient to this millionaire formula is time, which brings me on to, when should I start investing? The short answer to this is as soon as possible. The younger you start, the better, as you're giving your investments more time to grow and compound. This also means you can take more risk, as your investments have time to recover if a stock market crash happens. And it will happen. It always happens. But life isn't as easy as this, as there are often things in the way preventing you from investing. So here's how I would structure things. First, you need to make sure you've paid off all high interest debt like credit cards. Just think about it. There's no point trying to make 10% in the stock market if you're paying 15% to a credit card company. Secondly, build up an emergency fund. This should be enough to cover 3 to 6 months of your living expenses. This way, you're not forced to sell your stocks in the event of an emergency, which can really ruin your progress. Once you've done both of these things, you're ready to start investing. If you're younger than 18, then it would be a great idea to ask a parent to open up a custodial account, which allows them to invest for you. This will give you such an advantage in the future. Your next question is probably something along the lines of, how much should I invest? When you ask an investor, they'll probably say as much as possible. However, I have a different opinion. I made most of my money through starting different businesses and only used the stock market to grow my wealth over time. I've also had a pretty fun life, from flying full-size aeroplanes and racing cars to competing for my country and traveling the world. If I'd invested all of that money into the stock market, then I'd have missed out on so much. So my answer would be to invest whatever you feel comfortable with. But if you want a more solid answer, then a 70-20-10 rule is a pretty good guide. It states that you should split your money by these percentages: 70% on living expenses, 20% on investments, and 10% on the fun stuff. Research shows that people who invest at this level are much better equipped to ride the ups and downs of life and also get ahead of everyone else. That's all well and good, but how do I buy a stock? There are various different apps out there that allow you to invest in stocks. I'll leave some links below. The key is to open the correct type of account. You'll often hear people throwing around the terms Roth IRA in the USA and Stocks and Shares ISA in the UK, TFSA in Canada, and Supers in Australia. If you don't have one of these accounts, then you're missing out, as they allow you to avoid paying taxes on your investments, but they do have limits because they're so powerful. A great thing about these investing apps is they actually give you the ability to buy fractional shares. So rather than buying a share of Apple for $190, you can invest as little as $1. I wish I had this option when I was younger, as it would have allowed me to get some early investing experience without having to take any big risks. One of my favourite investing platforms is Trading 212, as they do both of these things. Since I was planning to talk about their app anyway, I reached out to see if they'd be interested in sponsoring this portion of the video. They agreed and are also offering a free stock worth up to £100 to anyone that uses the code Tilbury when they create an account. One of the really cool things about Trading 212 is they let you practice investing with fake money, so you can get familiar with real data from the markets without risking any money. So if you're a little uncomfortable with investing or just want to try some strategies before putting your own money on the line, this is a great way to get started. Another great feature is called Pies, where you can see how other investors have allocated their money into different stocks. If you wanted to invest $100 into that pie, then it would just be split amongst the various allocations that pie creator has chosen. If you live in the UK or Europe, it's worth trying out Trading 212 because signing up is completely free and there are no commissions. Of course, don't forget to use the code Tilbury and you'll receive a free share worth up to £100. Or alternatively, click the link in the description to sign up and see exactly how to access the free share. Now the obvious next question is, how do I pick the best stocks? There are two main ways to attempt to predict the stock market. These are called technical and fundamental analysis. A good way to think about this is like a scale. Usually, short-term day traders are purely focused on the technical aspects. This includes looking at charts and patterns. They believe they can predict how the stock will change in price by judging the highs and the lows on the graphs. As a long-term investor, my strategy is about keeping it simple. Lots of people talk about using margin and options, but that's really not something I worry about. I'm a lot more focused on the fundamentals of a company. This includes the financials, the leadership, and the brand recognition, as I believe this is where the true information lies to indicate the long-term success of a stock. When I invest in a stock, I don't have an intention of selling it for at least 2 to 5 years. However, like I mentioned, it's a scale, so I do look at the occasional chart in order to find the best time to buy. This approach has helped me find some really good investments over the years, rather than just dipping in and out trying to make a profit every day. But with the majority of my investments, I don't actually do any of this. That's because I allocate most of my money to index funds. This is definitely the best strategy for most people. So, what's an index fund? It's a way for the average person to make more money than the professionals with very little effort. I'm a big football fan, and if you've ever followed any sports, you'll be familiar with a league table like this. The better your team performs, the higher up they'll be on the list. On the other hand, if they do really badly, they might be removed from the league entirely. This is almost exactly the same as an index. All you have to do is switch out the teams for companies. Let's take the S&P 500 for example. This is a list of around 500 of the largest public companies in the USA, the big dogs being Amazon, Google, Apple and Tesla. Just like the league table, if a company does poorly, then they run the risk of being removed from the list. With this league table or index of companies, you could go and buy stocks in some of them individually. However, if something bad happens to those companies that you've picked, then you can wave goodbye to your money. The idea of an index fund is to be a little bit sneaky, as it allows you to invest in every single company on the list with just one click. Even if a few companies do terribly, then it's balanced out by all the companies doing extremely well. The average annual return of the S&P 500 over the last 10 years has been 13.6%, although this is slightly higher than the average over time. No one has ever lost any money if they've bought and held an S&P 500 index fund for more than 20 years. The truth is that the average actively managed fund returned 2% less per year than the market in general. This means that the professionals on average are doing worse than index funds, and even if they end up losing you money, they still charge you high fees, no matter what. The reason that index funds can charge really low fees is because they're passively managed, which means they look after themselves and don't need an expert to keep adjusting them, meaning the fees can be as low as 0.02% per year. When I tell people about index funds, it often blows their minds. However, when they go onto an investing app, they get confused at the different options and ask, what's the best index fund to invest in? Well, as I said, I'm not a financial advisor, but I have had a lot of success with 3 different types of index funds. Number 1 tracks the S&P 500 index. This is the one we briefly mentioned before. The historical return of 8 to 10% has allowed me to generate a fortune over the years. This is due to the power of compound interest. The S&P 500 tracks 11 different industries/sectors, and no sector is more than 30% of the index. However, it is worth pointing out that it's a bit tech heavy these days, with 5 tech stocks dominating 23% of the entire fund. It's up to you if you see this as a positive or a negative. I personally don't mind, as I believe in the future of technology. There are so many different index funds that track the S&P 500, so here are some of my favourites. The best I found in the USA are the VFIAX Index Fund or the VU ETF. The best in the UK would probably be the VUSA ETF. The only real difference between an index fund and an ETF is that the ETF can be purchased or sold at any time throughout the day, just like a stock. Index funds can only be purchased in full. So for example, if the price is $500, you must pay $500. An ETF, on the other hand, can be purchased in fractional shares, which means you don't have to buy a full share, and instead you can invest whatever amount you like. This is great if you're just starting out or want to dollar cost average in. Personally, I've set up a direct debit every month so the money leaves my bank account without me even noticing. Really and truly, there isn't a huge difference between an index fund and an ETF. Just consider which one is best for you. Take the plunge. Number 2 is a total stock market index. The total stock market index has returned investors an average of 13% each year over the last 10 years, which isn't bad at all. It's the definition of diversification. You can't really get any more skin in the game for a lower cost. If you want to invest for a long period of time without having to even check or even think about it, then this is most likely the fund for you. Investing in everything means you can experience gains across the entire market, and unless a crazy crash happens, you should be okay. But even if it does crash, with time, things tend to bounce back. I've seen 3 crashes since I've been an investor: the dot-com bubble, the 2008 financial crisis, and the 2020 COVID crash. I'm not going to pretend these crashes didn't hurt, but long term, every market I've invested in has bounced back. The downside to this index is it depends on the entire market trending upwards. This means there could be an individual stock that you really believe in that goes to the moon, but you might not experience those gains because that stock doesn't play much of a role within the index fund. The best I found in the USA are the VT Sachs Index Fund and the VTI ETF. And the best in the UK is the VWRL ETF. Number 3 is the Emerging Markets Index. Emerging markets are predicted by some experts to be on the rise. And whether I agree with this or not, I think it's important for me to have at least a little bit of exposure to these markets. It's all well and good buying the S&P 500, but when China or another emerging country has some great gains, you'll end up missing out. Just as an example of this growth, when I first travelled to China around 20 years ago, I looked into buying an apartment in Shenzhen. That real estate was $47,000 and now it's worth over $1 million. This just shows
What
the
a
potential
first shot.
growth in these markets. Emerging market funds are definitely the most risky type of index funds we've discussed. These funds include stocks from lots of different growing markets
But now I have
and
no
can be very
bottom
heavy
platform, so
with
my balls are
Chinese
just gonna
companies.
sink.
Taking a look at a list of the largest economies in the world, a lot of them are emerging markets. So it just makes sense to me to throw a little bit of money in for diversification. The best I've found in the USA is the VEIEX ETF, and in the UK, the VFEM ETF. But there are also lots of other emerging market funds available, so it's worth having a look around. Now, I know at some point I need to address the biggest question around investing, which is, of course, is investing risky? It really depends on how you define risk. You may be scared that you'll lose money. However, you also face this risk by not investing, as my father Mervyn found out. If you have a diversified portfolio of index funds and keep investing at a gradual rate each and every year, then even if there is a stock market crash, then historical data shows you should be able to endure the storm. A great way to make sure you're protected in the event of a market crash is to mix in a few bonds within your stock portfolio. These are just a different type of investment that are far more stable than stocks, and you can buy these on the same investment platforms. In your 20s and 30s, I wouldn't worry too much about them, but as you move closer to retirement, it's a good idea to have more bonds than stocks. In my opinion, in your younger years, the biggest risk you can take is not taking enough risk. Now for the question on everyone's mind: when should I sell my stocks? It's possibly one of the most common questions in the stock investing world. Knowing when to sell stocks or hold on to them mostly depends on your age. If you're older, you've likely been investing for a while and can live off them during retirement by gradually selling when needed. However, if you're younger, this usually isn't the case. In fact, if you're in your 20s to 30s, there are only 3 good reasons to sell your investments. Number 1, you need money for an emergency. Hopefully, if you followed the video so far, then you won't need to worry because you've got an emergency fund to help you out in times like this. Number 2, you made a bad investment. If you have individual stocks that appear to be underperforming consistently, it may be time to cut your losses before those losses stack up even higher. Before panic selling, take a good look at the wider industry. If other goods like it are also in decline, then you know it's the industry, not just your stock. If everything's doing poorly, this gives you a bit of extra context. Number 3, you've achieved a specific goal. Although I don't really recommend it, if you're investing for short or medium term goals like, I don't know, saving up for a dream vacation, then it would be a great idea to set a target price. This is a figure at which you would feel satisfied selling the stock and enjoying your gains. The most important thing to remember is to not sell your stocks for as long as possible, so they have the longest time to grow. Just invest and forget about it until you want to stop investing and take your profits. This thinking will also help you avoid panic selling. If you want to know exactly how I pick my individual stocks, then you can check out this video next, but don't click on it just yet. Make sure to subscribe if you want to grow your wealth, okay? I'll see you over there.
Let's go! I finally got Squirrel Girl. Kazoo is now online at full potential.
I like any local sports teams. No.
I'm gonna replay that video. That's really insightful for investing.
This is my father, Mervyn Tilbury. He's one of the hardest working people I know, and as a kid I remember him working in a factory job making cable ties and a side hustle cutting grass so he could provide for me and my mum and my 3 sisters. He'd stash away any extra money he made in a shoebox as well as a bank account that paid little to no interest, hoping that one day he could quit his job working in the factory. When my uncle invested some of his money in the stock market,
Mingo goes for Dino Deck, so I might as well get her out.
Unfortunately, what my dad didn't realise is that he was also playing a risky game. Can you see where this story's going? Every year my father's money was losing value due to inflation. This is just what happens over time. As more money is printed, the money in circulation becomes less valuable. This meant he was never able to quit his job in the factory. The thought of my money being eaten away by inflation scared me so much that I've made sure to invest throughout my life. As a result, not only have I beaten inflation, but
like
my investments actually now
about
grow by
transferring
around
you to your team.
$17,000 a week on their own, which over my lifetime has made me millions. I'm no financial advisor, but I am someone that's been there and done
me,
it.
I
That's
think I
why
was
I'm
in that
making this
program.
video.
I couldn't
It's
get into
exactly what
UTSA.
I wish I had when I
So I
was
went to
younger.
UTSA
How
and
can
I
I
had to,
make
like,
money investing in
basically
stocks?
Cable.
To make money, we
get
first
good
need to
grades
beat
at
the
UT
inflation
for half a
issue.
year,
In the
and
last
if I
goes
few
to the
did
years,
control
this
deck.
averages out to a rate of 3.8% per year. So if your money isn't growing by more than this on its own, then you're getting poorer by the second. In a perfect world, you would have a savings account that provides an
Brain damage
average
issue.
return of 8 to 10%
I actually
every
got
year,
fucked.
so
There
that
was
you can
like
both beat
some-
inflation and earn some
had to be a
profit.
certain
Unfortunately,
percentage
such savings
of, like,
accounts don't exist.
top
However, you
50%
can
of
achieve
your
returns
score,
like this
top
by
80, I don't
investing
know.
in the stock
You had to be a
market.
really
stock
high
is a
percentage of
small
your score.
part of a company, and when you buy
I went
it,
to a
you
private
become a
Christian
shareholder.
school.
And when you're
So
a
there was only
shareholder,
about
there are
50
two
people in
ways
my
you can
entire
make money.
grade.
Firstly, if the price of the stock goes up
And
during the
that
time you
year,
own
we
it,
got,
you
like,
can sell it for
10
more than you
foreign
paid.
exchange
Secondly,
which
you
put
can
us, like,
receive
over this
dividends.
threshold.
Dividends are regular payments to
before,
shareholders. Not all
because my
stocks
school was
pay
so small, I
dividends,
would be
but if they
exempt from
do,
that
this
percentage
means that you can
requirement.
receive money
But
without
because we
ever
gained,
selling your
like,
stock.
10
The
students
magic
that
really
year
starts to happen when you
from
own a bunch of
Korea, I
stocks
think,
that
I don't
grow
know.
at an average of 10%
We weren't
per
exempt,
year,
so I had to be
because
top
the interest
80%.
And Double
applied
Dino
becomes
wants them for the
larger and
draw
larger.
power.
This is
These
called
guys got good
compound
grades.
interest,
I don't know,
and I
I
have
had
to
all
admit,
A's
a
and I was
guilty
maybe
pleasure of
top
mine
50.
is messing around with online compound interest calculators. Let's do one now. If you were able to invest
I have way too many
$250
fours.
per month at an 8% annual return, in 42 years,
story
you'd
short,
be a
it's your
millionaire. And if you
No.
continue to do this for another 10 years,
No.
you would actually have over 2 million in your account. Of course, if you wanted to invest even more, then that would just speed up the process. This is all based on historical average data and it isn't guaranteed, but it's certainly been my experience. So as you can see, the real secret ingredient to this millionaire formula is time. Which brings me on to, when should I start investing? The short answer to this is as soon as possible. The younger you start, the better, as you're giving your investments more time to grow and compound. This also means you can take more risk, as your investments have time to
And more
recover
flood decks?
if a stock market crash happens. And it will happen.
This
it
could use
always happens.
some,
but life isn't as easy as this, as there are often
Squirrel
things
girl.
in the way preventing you from
schools don't have
investing.
streamer
So here's
privilege.
how I would
Feel better,
structure
you get it out of
things.
your system.
First, you need to make sure you've
gonna
paid
stay in
off
Austin
all
when you
high
move?
interest debt,
Probably.
like credit cards. Just think about it. There's no point trying to
people
make 10%
where
in the
not native
stock
speakers had
market
better
if you're
grades than
paying
you at your school?
15% to a credit
They
card
actually barely
company.
spoke English.
Secondly, build up an
They're
emergency
they were
fund.
fuckers, I
This should
swear
be
to
enough
God.
to cover
They
3 to
had this
6
thing
months
that they
of
could
your
bring in that
living
would help them
expenses.
translate,
This way,
but
you're
it
not
could
forced
do,
to sell
like,
your stocks in the event of an
calculating work
emergency,
too.
which can really
So when we
ruin
weren't
your
allowed to
progress.
have
Once you've done
calculators,
both of these things, you're ready to
they
start
had this, like,
investing.
this translating
If you're
thing
younger than
that
18,
also acted as
then
a
it would be a
calculator.
great idea to ask a parent to open up a custodial
And the teachers didn't know.
account,
I'm like, bro,
which allows
like,
them
look at
to
this shit. How do
invest
you
for
not
you.
know?
This will give you such an advantage
literally
in the
just took an
future.
entire
Your
math
next
test.
question
You're not
is
supposed to have a
probably
calculator
something
on
along
with
the
a
lines
calculator.
of, how much should I invest?
Just
When you
watch it
ask an
happen.
investor, they'll probably say as much as possible. However, I have a different opinion. I made most of my money through starting different businesses and only used the stock market to grow my wealth over time. I've also had a pretty fun life, from flying full-size aeroplanes and racing cars to competing for
I
my
don't know what the
country
fuck
and
any of these
traveling
quests
the
are. I'm just
world.
gonna do
If
them.
I'd invested all
just
of that
grind.
money into the stock market, then I'd have missed out on so much. So my answer would be to invest whatever you feel comfortable with. But if you want a more solid answer, then the 70-20-10 rule is a pretty good guide. It states that you should split your money by these percentages: 70% on living expenses, 20% on investments,
math.
and 10% on the fun stuff. Research shows that people who invest at this level are much
The only thing
better
that was-
equipped to
well,
ride the ups and downs of life and also get
English
ahead
is
of
where I
everyone
actually
else.
struggle.
That's all well and good, but
reading-
how
not
do
even
I
reading,
buy a
like, just
stock?
writing. Like, I
There are
can't write a
various
good
different
story.
apps out there that allow you to
least I
invest
couldn't.
in stocks. I'll leave some links below.
I just got too fucking
The key
bored.
is to open the correct type of account. You'll often hear people throwing around the terms Roth IRA in the USA and stocks and shares ISA in the UK, TFSA in Canada, and supers in
Hey, find
Australia.
the right answer.
If you don't have one of these accounts,
Alright, now
then
let's
you're
play our
missing out,
upgraded
as they allow
Kazoo.
you to avoid paying taxes on your investments, but they do have limits
Even
because
science
they're
is-
so
science is a
powerful. A
fucking
great
theory.
thing about these investing apps is they actually give you the ability to
Physics
buy
was a bit of a
fractional
bitch.
shares. So rather than buying a share of Apple for $190, you can invest
Maybe I
as
should
little
kill higher
as
level
$1.
mobs.
I wish I had this option when I was
I don't know.
younger,
These guys
as it would have
level
allowed
49,
me
is
to
that
get
good,
some
or should I go,
early
like,
investing
more?
experience without having to take any big risks. One of
Didn't
my
know someone
favourite
else's-
investing
other people's
platforms
grades
is
somehow
Trading
affect your grades.
212, as they do
do.
both of these things.
I had to
Since
be
I was
like a top
planning to
percentage of
talk
my
about their
class.
app anyway,
And I
I reached
couldn't
out to
because
see
they
if
were
they'd
another
be
one-time
interested in
effect?
sponsoring this portion of the video. They agreed and are also offering a free
it's
stock
free for me
worth
out
up
of
to
college.
£100 to anyone that uses the code Tilbury when they create an account. One of the really cool things about Trading 212 is they let you practice investing with fake money, so you can get familiar with real data from the markets without risking any money. So if you're a little uncomfortable with investing or just want to try some strategies before putting your own money on the line, this is a great way to get started. Another great feature is called Pies, where you can see how other investors have allocated their money into different stocks.
Except
If you wanted to
cleansing
invest
felt.
$100 into that pie,
I think you
then
can
it would
get
just be
demonic
split
runes from
amongst
the
the
Trader
various
mobs.
allocations that that pie creator has chosen. If you live in the UK or Europe,
I gotta go
it's
grab
worth
this
trying
stuff
out
over here.
Trading
Cleansing felt
212 because signing up is completely
How are my
free
SAT
and there are
scores?
no commissions. Of course,
not
don't
bad,
forget to use
actually.
the code Tilbury.
Nice
and
play
you'll
by him.
receive a free share
I
worth
think
up
the
to
highest you could get
£100.
is like
Or
a
alternatively,
You would have gotten
click
next
the
turn
link in the
anyway.
description to sign up and see exactly
400
how
at
to
the
access
time.
the free share.
So
Now the
800
obvious
was not
next
bad.
Watch your
question
turn
is,
to
how
reshuffle
do I
your
pick
card
the
into
best
your deck.
stocks? There are two main ways to attempt to predict the
Not
stock
crazy
market.
good. I'm not, you know,
These are
like,
called
oh my God, you're a
technical and
genius.
fundamental analysis.
No.
A good way to think
But not
about
bad.
this is like a scale. Usually, short-term day traders are purely focused on the technical aspects. This includes looking at charts and patterns. They believe they can
Remember there's
predict
some
how the
girl at my
stock will
mom's
change
video,
in
they were
price
like
by judging the
23,
highs
90
and the
something.
lows on the graphs. As a long-term investor,
like
my strategy
wicked
is about
smart.
keeping it simple. Lots of people talk about using margin and options, but that's really not something I worry about. I'm a lot more focused on
Not
the
even duelist
fundamentals
trading?
of a company. This includes the financials, the leadership, and the brand recognition. As I believe,
But
this is
the
where
way
the
I got a
true
good score
information
was not
lies
by-
to
it was
indicate
just
the
by
long-term success
taking
of a
SAT
stock.
prep classes.
When I invest in a stock, I don't have an intention of selling it for at least 2 to 5
Which I had to
years.
take a fuck
However,
ton.
like I mentioned, it's
And
a
that
scale,
sucked.
so I do look at the occasional chart in order to find the best time to buy. This approach has helped me find some really good investments over the years, rather than just dipping in and out trying to make a profit every day. But with the majority of my investments, I don't actually do any of this. That's because I allocate most of my money to index funds. This is definitely the best strategy for most people. So, what's an index fund?
Like, it's actually
It's a
12
way
bucks
for the
tickets.
average person to make more money than the professionals
Pretty confident
with
I'm ahead
very
here.
little effort. I'm a big football fan, and if you've ever followed any sports, you'll be familiar with a league table like this. The better your team performs, the higher up they'll be on the list. On the other hand, if they do really badly, they might be removed from the league entirely. This is almost exactly the same as an index. All you have to do is switch out the teams for companies. Let's take the S&P 500 for example. This is a list of around 500 of the largest public companies in the USA, the big dogs being Amazon, Google, Apple and
54
Tesla.
died.
Just
That was
like the
great.
league table, if a company does
In
poorly,
Bellwood.
then they run the risk of being removed from the list. With this league table or index of companies, you could go and buy stocks in some of them individually. However, if something bad happens to
Wait,
those
to a
companies
Pathfinder.
you've picked, then you can wave goodbye to your money. The idea of an index fund is to be a little bit sneaky, as it allows you to invest in every single company on the
That's
list
a dead
with
Pathfinder.
just
Oh,
one
shit.
click. Even if a few companies do terribly, then it's balanced out by all the companies doing extremely well. The average annual return of the S&P 500 over the
Insanity,
last
you
10
gotta be
years has
so
been
bored.
13.6%,
goddamn,
although
that
this
you
is
have
slightly
got to
higher
have
than the
a whole lot of
average
fucking
over
nothing to
time.
do right
No
now.
one has ever lost any money if
Nice.
they bought and held an S&P 500 index fund for more than 20 years. The truth is that the average actively managed fund returned 2% less per year than the market in general. This means that the professionals on average are doing worse than index funds, and even if they end up losing
Yep,
you
watch
money,
stream. Alright, fair
they
enough.
still
I
charge you
appreciate
high
it.
fees,
That's it,
no matter
yeah.
what. The
If the guy
reason that
wants to
index
grind
funds
them
can
until
charge
unfriendly
really
with
low
100
fees
mobs,
is
just
because
kill
they're
whatever you see.
passively
Alright.
managed, which
You
means
didn't
they
give
look
up.
after
I
themselves
believe.
and don't need an
You should
expert
retreat
to keep
there, right?
adjusting them, meaning the fees can be as low as 0.02% per year. When I
like
tell
all
people
fucking
about
dead already.
index funds, it often blows their minds. However, when they go onto an investing app, they get confused
try,
at the
Elizabeth.
different options and ask, What's the best index fund to invest in? Well, as I said, I'm not a financial advisor, but I have had a lot of success with 3 different types of index funds.
Okay.
Number 1 tracks the S&P 500 index. This is the one we briefly mentioned before. The historical return of 8 to 10% has allowed me to generate a fortune over the years. This is due to the power of compound interest. The S&P 500 tracks 11 different industries/sectors, and no sector is more than 30% of the index. However, it is worth pointing out that it's a bit tech heavy these days, with 5 tech stocks dominating 23% of the entire fund. It's up to you if you see this as a positive or a negative. I personally don't mind, as I believe in the future of technology. There are so many different index funds that track the S&P 500, so here are some of my favourites. The best I found in the USA are the VFIAX Index Fund or the VU ETF. The best in the UK would probably be the VUSA ETF. The only real difference between an index fund and an ETF is that the ETF can be purchased or sold at any time throughout the day, just like a stock. Index funds can only be purchased in full. So for example, if the price is $500, you must pay $500. An ETF, on the other hand, can be purchased in fractional shares, which means you don't have to buy a full share, and instead you can invest whatever amount you like. This is great if you're just starting out or want to dollar cost average in. Personally, I've set up a direct debit every month, so the money leaves my bank account without me even noticing. Really and truly, there isn't a huge difference between an index fund and an ETF. Just consider which one is best for you. Take the plunge. Number 2 is a total stock market index. The total stock market index has returned investors an average of 13% each year over the last 10 years, which isn't bad at all. It's the definition of diversification. You can't really get any more skin in the game for a lower cost. If you want to invest for a long period of time without having to even check or even think about it, then this is most likely the fund for you. Investing in everything means you can experience gains across the entire market, and unless a crazy crash happens, you should be okay. But even if it does crash, with time, things tend to bounce back. I've seen 3 crashes since I've been an investor. The dot-com bubble, the 2008 financial crisis, and the 2020 COVID crash. I'm not going to pretend these crashes didn't hurt, but long term, every market I've invested in has bounced back. The downside to this index is it depends on the entire market trending upwards. This means there could be an individual stock that you really believe in that goes to the moon, but you might not experience those gains because that stock doesn't play much of a role within the index fund. The best I found in the USA are the VT Sachs Index Fund and the VTI ETF. And the best in the UK is the VWRL ETF. Number 3 is the Emerging Markets Index. Emerging markets are predicted by some experts to be on the rise. And whether I agree with this or not, I think it's important for me to have at least a little bit of exposure to these markets.
Alright, let's get this done for the daily. That's what I'm just trying to get to.
But when China or another emerging country has some great gains, you'll end up missing out. Just as an example of this growth, when I first travelled to China around 20 years ago, I looked into buying an apartment in Shenzhen. That real estate was $47,000 and now it's worth over $1 million. This just shows the potential growth in these markets. Emerging market funds are definitely the most risky type of index funds we've discussed. These funds include stocks from lots of different growing markets and can be very heavy with Chinese companies. Taking a look at a list of the largest economies in the world, a lot of them are emerging markets. So it just makes sense to me to throw
give you another one.
Money in for diversification. The best I found in the USA is the VEIEX ETF. And in the UK, the VFEM ETF. But there are also lots of other emerging market funds available, so it's worth having a look around. Now, I know at some point I need to address the biggest question around investing, which is, of course, is investing risky? It really depends on how you define risk. You may be scared that you'll lose money. However, you also face this risk by not investing. As my father Mervyn found out, if you have a diversified portfolio of index funds and keep investing at a gradual rate each and every year, then even if there is a stock market
Basically
crash,
helping the
then
first
historical
person
data
to be
shows
like, "Yeah, let's
you
help
should
you
be able
guys
to
with
endure the
pyramid."
storm. A
And
great
they'll
way
help
to make
Zico,
sure
and
you're
then they'll get
protected in
bored
the
of
event of a
helping
market
Zico,
crash
and they
is to
won't
mix
wanna
in
help
a
anyone
few
else.
He's playing very
bonds within
weakly,
your
so I
stock
will
Zico is gonna be like
Snap.
the first
These are
come,
just a
first served
different
kinda
type of investment
basis
that
by
are
being the
far
first
more
60.
stable than stocks, and you can buy these on
Did
the
he not
same
play a card?
investment platform.
Or did he
In
snap?
your 20s and 30s, I wouldn't worry too much about them, but as you move closer to retirement, it's a good idea to have more bonds than stocks. In my opinion,
When's the
in your
tournament?
younger
Does it
years,
literally have
the
like a
biggest
month?
risk you can take is not taking
what,
enough
4 days
risk.
in?
Now for the question on everyone's mind. When should I sell my stocks? It's possibly one of the most common questions in the stock investing world.
I'll
Knowing
play
when to
Jessica
sell stocks
there,
or hold on
play
to them
Nightcrawler
mostly
and Rock and
depends on
whatever
your
here,
age.
and then
If
play
you're
Nina
older,
Chavez in
you've
the
likely
middle and
been
here.
investing for a
Move
while
Nightcrawler
and
to the
live
middle
off them
and
during
win the game.
retirement by gradually
it's
selling
so
when
much
needed.
time.
Unless I need to on the
However,
right
if
because
you're
the left
younger,
is
this
compromised.
usually isn't the case. In
'Cause
fact,
if he focused
you're in
all
your
his resources
20s
on
to
the left,
30s, there are only
maybe he can
3
beat me
good
on left,
reasons
but,
to sell your investments.
I'll win the other two.
Number
XP
one,
from
you need
unsolicited
money
requests
for an
I'm
way too far ahead.
emergency. Hopefully, if you followed the video so far, then you won't need to worry because you've got an emergency fund to help you out in times like
Look at my
this.
reputation,
Number
hold
two, you made a bad investment. If you have individual stocks that appear to be underperforming consistently, it may be time to cut your losses before those losses stack up even higher. Before panic selling, take a good look at the wider industry. If other goods like it are also in decline, then you know it's the industry, not just your stock. If everything's doing poorly, this gives you a bit of extra context. Number three, you've achieved a specific goal. Although I don't really recommend it. If you're investing for short or medium term goals,
It's
like,
over for him.
I don't know, saving up for a dream vacation, then it would be a great idea to set a target price.
Dude, this song
This
is
is a
ruined
figure
for
at
me.
which you would feel satisfied selling the stock and enjoying your gains.
I
The
can
most
ruin it for you
important
so
thing to
easily.
remember is to not sell your stocks for as long as
All
possible, so they have the longest
When you hear
time
the
to
chorus,
grow.
he
Just
says, "I
invest
got
and
Jew
forget
porn."
about it until you want to stop investing and take your profits. This thinking will also help you avoid panic selling. If you want to know exactly how I pick my individual
Jew
stocks,
porn.
then you can check out this video next, but don't click
you'll
on it
never
just
hear
yet. Make sure to subscribe if you want to grow your wealth, okay? I'll see you over there.
You'll never hear it. Ruined? Question mark. All right, maybe it's not ruined, but every time you hear it, all you're gonna think is like, did that guy just say I got Jew porn?
Shit.
Improved? Okay. Here it comes.
Oh, it wasn't 6 cost. It doesn't count for the weekly, and he got destroyed.
This is my fault.
Just a place where money can magically double, and some people think the market is a scam, and it's all one giant casino designed to get your money, which also happens to be fake. Either way, magic tricks
What
are
does he
fun and
actually
you
say?
should smash them.
I actually
But
got
just
Jew
like a
porn.
casino, people are starting to take bets over what's about to happen next in the market. And one of the people the media is starting to talk about right now is Michael Burry, who you might remember from 2008.
The whole housing market is propped up on these bad loans. They will fail.
The housing market is rock solid.
Or like how the
It's a
Dark
time
Knight
bomb.
Rises takes time.
That was from a
Here's
movie called
fish,
The Big
fish,
Short, where
pasta,
actor
pasta.
Christian Bale portrayed Michael Burry's bet
pasta,
against
pasta.
the housing market. And at the time,
Yeah,
people
Sorry
called
it
him
took so
crazy.
long. I didn't realize
They
it was
said
on
that the
me.
housing market was the safest
one
investment
song
anyone could
where
ever
it's like,
make. He was so confident that he bought
"Oh, for
$8.4
tuna."
billion worth of credit
At some point it's
default
like
swaps to
chips
bet
and
against the
salsa or some
housing
shit.
market. And now the
That
world
Oh,
is
for tuna,
waking
you know
up
what
to
I'm
his
talking about.
latest bet against the stock market. And you might have seen these headlines from organizations like Yahoo and CNN, which are saying that Michael Burry just bet $1.6 billion against the stock market.
Well, this time around, Burry has bought $1.6 billion
so
worth of
150 away
financial
from
instruments called
getting out of this
options
trap,
that would allow him to profit from a
1B,
stock
1B.
market fall,
Okay.
according to a filing made with US regulators.
Except all of that is completely
Sal-
wrong.
oh yeah,
And it's
salsa
wrong
cookies.
because of something called 13F.
This sounds so
13F
gross.
filings are a quarterly report card. It's a requirement by the SEC for anyone that manages over $100 million to disclose no more than 45 days at the end of each quarter to show us all of their investments. And since Michael Burry manages over $100 million, he's required to as well. And in Mr. Burry's most recent filing, it showed that most of his clients' money was now seemingly invested in betting against the stock market to the tune of $1.6 billion. And to the average person who doesn't watch these nerdy YouTube videos, who just watches the news and sees the headlines and doesn't check their portfolio every single day, they put the two and two together. The guy who successfully predicted the 2008 housing crisis is now heavily betting against the stock market. Combine them together and you can get something extremely dangerous. So in today's video, I want to correct the headlines and show you what's actually happening so that you don't panic and sell your stocks. So let's get into it. Hi, my name is Andre Jick. Hope you're doing well. Come for the finance and stay for one of the biggest bets against the stock market. Now, first, a quick disclaimer. I am not suggesting that you should not sell your stocks or you should buy more stocks because I don't know your situation.
But I just
and it
realized
depends on your age,
during
your goal,
the OTK,
whether
like,
you're trying
pool
to invest
tournament,
and grow your money or preserve your
people are
money.
gonna have a
No
fuck
one
ton
can
of noggin
predict the stock
foggers.
market. But the point is,
Everyone
this
is gonna be on a dead
$1.6 billion bet sure
Everyone.
does sound like Michael Burry knows something everyone else doesn't. But here's why everyone is so
Won't even be able to tell
confused.
who's who.
A 13F filing requires these institutions to tell us not just their stock holdings, but also their call and put options, which remember
Fitting for
are just
Halloween. True, everyone's
contracts.
spooky
Now here's an
as fuck.
example of a call option. Let's say that you and a friend go
That's
to
her
Toys R
wasted
Us
bag
and you
space?
find a toy
No,
that
I'm
you
saying,
really
like,
want to
they're
buy,
gonna be
like this
noggin
Moogle
foggering
toy,
for, like,
and it costs
the
$10.
benefits of the
But
trash
you only have
box.
$1 in your pocket, so your friend feels really bad for you and they offer you a deal. They tell you
I don't even like
they will
Nina
buy
in
the
this
toy
deck.
for you, and they will hold it for exactly 1 week, and in exchange, they want
Like
the
it's an
dollar
actual
that's
game
Because I always
changer
just play
to be
Iron
able
Man in this
to-
situation.
why this is great
Noggin
is because
fogger
if
every
next
3
week
seconds
Toys R
for a
Us
trash
decides to
buff,
double the price of
one
this
of
toy
3,
to $20,
guarantee
you
everyone
could
has
still
a phone.
buy it for that original
you're right,
$10
Backspace
price,
is a bitch.
and you'll have made a $10
Maybe
profit.
they won't want to have too much
But
noggin fogger,
if this
but
toy drops in price and Toys
You
R
keep
Us
Robux?
starts to
No,
charge
Robux are great.
$5,
Hello, we'll wrap up here.
you don't have to buy the toy back from your friend at all. But in exchange, your friend gets to keep the dollar that you gave them. Now, in technical stock terminology, that $1 is called the premium. So that's really a call option. It's just an easy way to bet on something going up in price
Are we
for
gonna be doing
cheaper.
matching
Now here's what a
Halloween
put
outfits?
option is using that same
Are we?
analogy. This is what Michael Burry
think
did.
so.
Imagine you bought the Moogle toy for $10, but you're worried that next week it's going to go down in price, and you think that you're not going to be able to sell it for the full price that you paid for it. So your friend offers you another deal. They tell you, for the $1 that's in your pocket, they promise to buy the Moogle from you for the full price of $10, regardless of what Toys R Us is charging next week. So you take the deal. Now, if the price of the Moogle goes down in value to $5 like you thought it would, in that case, your friend has to buy the toy from you and you just made some money. But if the price stays the same or it goes up,
What am I at?
you actually don't have to sell the toy to your friend,
Okay, I
but
see
they keep
till
that
12
$1 that you gave them, which remember is the premium. That is essentially a put option. It's just an easy way or a cheaper way to bet on something going down in price.
We got
Calls and
summons for
puts
World
explained
Bucks,
like
we
I'm
love
5.
that.
Now sometimes I
did they
get these
drop
two
again?
confused, so a really cool way to remember this that's helped me is to think of a phone. Whenever you think of a phone, you put a phone
20 minutes,
down and you
6:35
call
I-
up a friend. So a
TYVM.
put is a bet on the market going down because you put the
I'm
phone
actually
down,
excited to
and
fucking
a
level a
call
lawyer.
is a bet on the market
pretty sure I'm
going
gonna be
up
playing one
because you
Friday.
call up a friend. Now,
Like,
in the real stock market,
but
there
I'm
is
gonna
one big difference
basically
because
enchant the
whenever
fuck
we
out of
refer
myself.
to a contract,
I'm basically gonna
it
pull a
doesn't
Mitch
represent
Jones.
just one share or one Moogle. It represents 100 of them.
Fiery
so
weapon
one
just to start
options
off. Maybe I'll
contract
get a
is
Crusader.
100 shares, and 10 options contracts is 1,000 shares. So in practical
One cost
terms,
on
what that
reveal after
actually
you play an
means
ice card
is
move
if you want to get into
location
making
left.
these
My
bets
YouTube
and
Shorts
collecting these
algorithm is
dollars
actually
from
so
people's
fucked.
pockets, the premiums, you will
I'm
have
actually
to
getting,
have
like,
at least 100 of a
YouTube
share to
short
be able to do
clips
it. If
of
you have
hardcore
less than
WoW.
that, you won't be able to. But
And
for
I got a
every
clip of
100
Mitch
you have
in
of a stock, you can
ZG
write
on his
one
mage.
options contract. Now back to the Michael Burry bet though. Here's where
This
the media
motherfucker
got
was
it
like,
wrong.
"Yo, I'm
When you
doing
looked
so
at
much
Michael
damage,
Burry's
guys. I'm
new
doing so much
13F
damage." He was
filings,
top of
they
the
found
main.
Alright, those will be the games for today. Doing my missions,
That
doing my
one point
dailies.
was it?
Not gonna grind that hard today.
Put the
Everything's gonna
pass
reset
around,
soon.
which is how you know
Uh,
he's
peace.
betting on that something going down.
And then he pulled
the
threat.